Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, on the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti for FPS monitoring. This time I won't be using cam since it's not currently working with this game, and if you enjoy the content and want to support the channel directly, there are Humble and Amazon affiliate links down in the description. So Wolfenstein 2, I'll be doing 1080p, 900p and 720p. To skip none of those sections of the video, check the description below. So first I'll show you 1080p using my tweak settings, which means that I'm trying to target 60 frames per second, and I'm using pretty much a mix between medium and high with TSS-AA ATX and adaptive resolution. I'll talk more about the options menu later in the video. And well, so far in this open area I found in the game in New York, you'll notice quite a bit of performance drops. Sometimes it can drop as low as the low 40s. Which is kind of disappointing because at the beginning of the game I was hitting like 60 frames per second with the highest settings. I'm here with medium settings and adaptive resolution, I'm getting quite the drops. Then I show you the highest settings on 1080p. This is kind of overkill, to be honest, because you can lower the shadows from Uber to Ultra and get like 5 to 7 FPS more. But it's just to show you the highest settings because a lot of you always ask me, hey, try the highest settings. And I also put here adaptive resolution because if not it dropped below 30 frames per second sometimes. It was quite unstable, it was between 30 and 60-ish FPS. Then I tried 1080p, the lowest settings, without adaptive resolution and without anti-aliasing in order to see pretty much the lowest settings. And this was way more stable, but still wasn't enough to maintain over 60 frames per second all the time. But the tweaked settings look way better in my opinion. You might not notice much of a difference due to YouTube's compression. And when you're actually playing the game, you can notice quite a bit of better image quality with the tweak settings at the beginning of the video. But which settings to use is up to you. Then I do 900p with again tweak settings, which is pretty much high settings for what I selected here. High settings with particles and directional occlusion on medium, and volumetric quality on medium as well, without dynamic resolution scale. And in my opinion, this is the best way to play the game. It's pretty much over 50 frames per second, except in some parts when it drops a little bit below that. When there are many particles on screen, you might see a drop to 45 or something like that. But this, in my opinion, is like the best quality performance option. 900p with all the settings I selected. Then I do 900p the lowest settings with higher anti-aliasing options. When there are many particles on screen, you'll see drops to 52, but it's not all the time. It's just in these big specific areas with a lot of particles on screen when that big robot attacks you. And then I do 720p with tweak settings, which are settings a little better than 900p settings, plus TSS-AA ATX to hide the lower resolution. And well, this ran pretty well actually. I wasn't getting as many drops below 60. I got a couple below 60 when fighting the big robot, but it wasn't that bad. It felt very good to play, very fluid. And finally I test 720p on the highest settings, but once again remember that you can just lower shadows from Uber to Ultra and it will be like 5 FPS more. I was getting pretty much 45 FPS, 45 to 60 FPS. It was quite variable, but it was playable overall. And now I'm going to talk to you about the options menu. And for what I played so far, I didn't need a better CPU. I used a GTX 1060, the 6GB version, and the GPU was at 100% all the time. That's why I didn't use a better CPU. It didn't make a difference at all, since the GPU was already at the maximum potential. When I played this game for the first time, which was live on stream using a GTX 1050 Ti, just to give you an example on how I see performance of this game, I noticed that it was running on almost the highest, on pretty much the highest settings except in shadows at 60 frames per second. Then when I got to place it with a lot of soldiers and fighting a lot of people at the same time, I got drops to 40-45 FPS, which in my opinion wasn't that bad. But then I warned everyone that probably when we get to bigger maps there will be performance issues, and in the end I was right. I got to New York, which is a much bigger area than the previous ones we played. Since at the beginning of the game we have a lot of corridors, a lot of very close spaces, and well, once we are in this open area, it's quite difficult to maintain a consistent frame rate. So be warned, if you're getting good performance compared to me, just test this big area and you'll see the performance hitches and all that kind of stuff. When there are many enemies on screen, for example 4 or 5 enemies, and you start killing them very fast with dual wielding assault rifles, all that kind of stuff, you start seeing drops below 60 frames per second. On the 1050 Ti, for example, that's what happened. So this should be the best place to test your settings. If you are having good performance at the beginning of the game, it should be normal since that's less demanding at this area. But well, overall the settings that caused me the most problems on performance were shadows. From Uber to Ultra there is a significant difference. I think it was like 5 to 10 FPS. Plus stability when fighting enemies. It was more stable with shadows below the Uber setting. And then the other ones that you should lower to get the best performance are particles, directional occlusion, reflections, volumetric quality, LOD switch, and that's pretty much it. Those settings were the quickest ones to get some extra frames, but if you want to get even better frame rates, I recommend the ones I didn't mention, except in textures, lower them in groups, so that should help you out with performance to try and tweak it the best way possible. There's also an option called deferred rendering. So far I saw a performance improvement with this enabled in some sections, in some others it was like the same, so I didn't really notice much of a difference. So I recommend you play with it. You have to restart the game, but you can save anywhere, so just save in a spot where you're having performance issues. Enable deferred rendering, restart the game, load that save, and you should notice the difference right away. This changes the way the game is rendered from forward to deferred, but the game doesn't do a good job explaining what will be the difference. And then we also have a resolution scale option, which if you put it on manual is like on many games, you just have 1.0, and if you lower that it will lower the internal rendering resolution. But you also have the adaptive option, which dynamically changes the resolution scale in order to get better frame rates. And so far it's working out in some instances. In some others I don't see much of a difference, but if you want to use it I recommend you enable TSS-AA anti-aliasing. That'll make it harder to notice a lower resolution, since it seems to be a very good temporal anti-aliasing solution. From TSS-AA to SMAA I didn't notice much of a performance difference. If you use FXAA or turn off anti-aliasing you'll notice a difference, but from SMAA to TSS-AA there was a small gap, like 1 or 2 frames, so I recommend you stick to TSS-AA, it looks better in my opinion. But yeah, not much else to say. The game is running quite bad on very open areas, when there's a lot of enemies on screen, when you're fighting, when you're on corridors and all that kind of stuff, very close spaces, it runs much better, so keep that in mind while you're playing this game or tweaking the game by yourself. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video, thanks for watching and see you next time.
Ignore the pain. Ain't dead. So keep moving.
William, do you read? If you are on 5th Avenue, the State Building should be near.
Hello, big boy. Come to test the old man's mettle. Ignore the pain. Ain't dead, so keep moving.
William, do you read? If you are on 5th Avenue, the State Building should be near.
Mama, you showed me postcards from your family in New York City. Wanted to go there. Hello, big boy. Come to test the old man's mettle.
William, do you read? If you are on 5th Avenue, the State Building should be near.
Hello, big boy. Come to test the old man's mettle. Ignore the pain. Ain't dead, so keep moving.
William, do you read? If you are on 5th Avenue, the State Building should be near.
Mama, you showed me postcards from your family in New York City. Wanted to go there. Just you and me. Hello, big boy. Come to test the old man's mettle.